Today we are at the Tatton Park Flower Show, and as per usual I am going to be on the hunt for some small space gardening ideas. Let's get started. In this week's episode I'm going to meet a designer who's going to show us how to bring some colour into a shade garden. I'm also going to be sitting down with one of the young designers here at the RHS Tatton Park Flower Show. We're also going to be taking a look at orchids and whether or not orchids can grow in our back garden in the UK. I've also selected one of the large show gardens here at the show, and I'm going to break it down to show you how you can implement some of these techniques into your own space, whether or not you like the garden. As well as refamiliarizing myself with the Alleyway garden. I'm going to be taking a walk down the Ginnel Garden this year and meeting the designer. But first, now there are around about 20 different border gardens here at the show, and they are packed full of ideas. So let's go take a look at some of them. Today's episode is all about face value. When we look at gardens at flower shows, we often just think, oh, this is pretty. But I'm going to tell you a little bit more about face value. Let's take this garden for example. This is called Dear Oh Dear. Now you'll notice that in the center there are these two steel sculptures, and they represent deers browsing through the undergrowth. However, it's not just about these pretty structures. The planting here actually is what's important. So the plants here are not truly graze proof, but there are some plants here that are more, let's say, less palatable to deers, and they include acers and miscanthus. Students at the University of Gloucestershire created this garden, and once again there are some huge structures here, but in actual fact it's all about the planting. The planting is dedicated to attracting in nighttime and daytime pollinators. The planting on the next garden is stunning, but I did notice these huge structures in the middle, so I decided to track down the designer to find out a little bit more about this garden.
So I'm Mel Donovan. I'm My Gardening Adventure on Instagram.
Thank you so much. So we are standing right in front of your border garden here at Tatton. Can you tell us a little bit more about your client brief?
So it was, the brief was to make statements, and my border inspiration was the Manchester skyline and the increased number of tower blocks that have popped up over the years. Obviously starting off with the CIS towers, which was the shortest in the 60s, up to the new modern builds. And I just wanted to create a calming planting space to bring some calm against the busy city.
I think it's absolutely beautiful. What I love about the garden is there are lots of different heights and levels, and not just from the skyscrapers but from the planting. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you created these levels?
Yes, so I wanted some low-level planting that would add a pop of colour, and then just so that the eye would move around the garden, creating a calm feeling, almost a meditative feel, and just to help people's well-being.
Amazing. And so what's going to happen to the garden once the show is over?
So I'm really pleased that it's going to the Royal Oldham Hospital, so that the staff, visitors and patients can benefit from the planting scheme and the design.
Oh, that's so lovely. But I did hear that you won a silver gilt medal.
Yes.
And is this your first border garden?
It is, yes.
Wow,
yeah.
What an achievement.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries, well, congratulations.
Thank you so much, Jason. Thanks for coming by.
No worries, thank you. Mel's goal is similar to mine, and that is to make our towns and cities a little bit greener. And I'm really proud to say that she has become a local nature champion, just like myself, for Manchester.
I'm Rachel Barber, Rachel's Pretty Plants and Gardens.
Tell us a little bit more about your client brief for this garden.
It was a space underneath tall trees, similar to where we are now. The brief was to make a statement. So I've chosen to do it figuratively and literally. So literally with the trees and figuratively with the stone that sits beneath the trees.
And what I've picked up on is that this garden, although it's extremely colourful, there's actually a predominant amount of this is shade planting.
Yes, yes. It was because of the aspect of where it would sit, because it would be underneath sort of 200-300-year-old oak trees and beech trees kind of thing, that it needed to have a lot of shade planting that it would be tolerant of.
Tell us how you managed to incorporate some colour into the planting.
I kept quite a tight colour palette of whites, purples with flashes of pink. So picking, you know, there were your standards of your hostas that we know love shade, and heucheras, which are of a variety of different colours anyway, that we could use all of them. Where there were spaces where, because we are under an aspect of taller trees, that we'd have some more sun-loving, I picked out ones particularly that bees and butterflies would enjoy, was the main thing.
So things like the delphiniums.
The delphiniums, yeah, delphiniums, the veronicastrum, the canthum, salvias. Geraniums full stop will love a pollinator, but Roseanne is one of my very firm favourites, so I picked her.
And it goes wild.
Yes, and it goes wild. It goes wild. But it can stay. You can keep it compact, and doing splitting, you know, over several years. I think that's something that I would recommend to clients anyway.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot now. So if we're going to use some of your planting here,
Yeah.
which ones could we instantly put in the pot if we are about to go to a garden centre this weekend?
If we're about to go to a garden centre this weekend, I'd be picking your salvia for your bit of height.
Yep.
And then I'd be doing your, pretty much how this is now, your scabious, because then you've got a bit more movement within your flowers.
Yep.
And then if you've got your geranium roseanne there a bit lower down, or you've got an erigeron Cavinskianus, where again you've got one that's a bit lower down if you want a bit more pink rather than purple.
I think that would look absolutely stunning. I believe that you won a silver gilt medal.
Yes.
Wow, and this is your first border garden.
And this is my first border garden, yeah. I'm really thrilled with it. It would have been slightly bigger trees, and I might have got a gold as well.
Who cares?
Yeah,
It looks stunning.
but the composition of the planting horticulturally is correct. So
Yeah.
if you replicate this in your garden, then it works, it will work.
And that is what's important.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so
and
much.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. I've loved it.
So I'm Callum, and I've built this garden.
What's the name of the garden?
God, what is it actually? Entertaining meets nature. I get them switched up. I literally get them switched up. Sometimes I say nature meets entertaining, and sometimes I say entertaining meets nature, and I'm like, which one is it?
Right, let's try that again, shall we?
Okay.
Would you like to introduce yourself for me, please?
I'm Callum, and I'm the designer of Entertaining Meets Nature.
Thank you so much. Right, Callum, I met you, I think in 2022 on the Ceres Garden at Chelsea. You came to see me, and I remember showing you the garden. And since then, you've gone on to do your own border garden. You've helped me at Cloudscape at the Urban Show this year, and you've helped other people. Now, you've got your own big boy show garden. Tell us, what is the client brief for this garden, and how's the process been for you?
Well, yeah, so process has been brilliant actually. I mean, I've had Mark and Lynn from the Landscape Academy helping me through everything, so they've talked to me and they've just given me the right guidance to get things done. So, and you know Mark and Lynn as well, so they get things done. It's been brilliant. No messing about. It gets done, and this is what we need with a show garden. Like, sometimes I could probably be in a case where I'm a bit like, oh, right, we'll do it and we'll work it out, but no, it's been really good coming into this with a proper plan, and just we know exactly what we're going to be doing. my client brief was, it's for a couple in their early 30s that like to entertain, but they also have a really passionate side in wildlife, and they want to bring as much wildlife into the garden as possible.
And I think you've done a really great job of it, because it almost feels like the garden's split into two halves. We've got this raised deck, which is not something that we normally see in a show garden.
No.
What was the thought process there?
So I just kind of wanted to do something a bit like out of the ordinary, and I knew I wanted different levels, because I thought people don't really do different levels in show gardens. I think sometimes they do at Chelsea and stuff, but like I don't think I've seen much at Tatton. So I was like, right, I want to try and do something a little bit crazy there. So I thought about it first. I actually thought about, my first thought was to come down into the garden and then come back up. But I'm glad I actually didn't do that now, and I'm glad I've just started at the base level and then gone back up.
So when you had this thoughts about this garden, did it start off with this idea of the two levels and then you built the garden around that concept, or was it a particular material?
Truthfully, the way it started was, I thought about this bottom section first, and then this top section was going to be one big circular path with a seating area right at the top, and then it was going to go back right round, and it was going to have like trees in the middle. It was going to be like a bit of a forest at the top, and then I thought, how am I going to get the budget for that?
So we have a revised
version. Yeah, I changed it up a little bit, and this is what I come up with.
What I would say is the planting is absolutely stunning. The colour palette that you've chosen here is really, really beautiful. Is there a reason why you picked this colour palette, or any of these plants in particular?
So the reason with the colour palette was, it was actually purple, white and orange, and we've got the Achillea terracotta, but it's actually yellowed up over the last few days. So when I first picked it, it was the orange to bounce off the rust, off the table, off the dead hedge, and it was all going to bounce off together. And I think about a week ago it probably looked a bit more, what's the word, like tied together. It looked a bit more I don't know what the word is, but like it looked all tied together, and it probably was a bit better. But I'm still happy with the yellow. I still think it pops, but the white in the garden, we chose that because I think sometimes borders just look so much nicer with white. I think it makes the other colours pop, and it gives you like a bit of, I think it's like looks a bit fresh.
Yes.
I think it gives it that freshness look. And the purple was, when I was picking plants to choose for pollinators, most of the plants were purple, and I'm thinking, you've got to have your verbenas for the butterflies, Nepetas for the bees, and I'm thinking, right, there's so many purple plants, we've got to have purple in there. So, and that's how we kind of come up with the colour scheme.
It's all just come together, it's so nice. And like you said, with the rust, with the cortin, it all kind of melts into one. So you've done a great job. And how did you even come up with the planting combinations? So,
well, to be honest, I can't take full credit on that. That's Becky's side of it too. So, no, I come up with I choose what kind of plants we want to use, and me and Becky will work together with choosing what plants we're going to use. And then normally we'll work together, put them together, but it does involve a lot of her shouting at me and saying, no, that can't go there, that can't go there. I'm like, well, right, okay.
Well, in that case, I think it's only fair that we go and meet Becky, and you can come and teach us how to plant like this.
Okay, amazing.
So we have met the brawns, but now we need to meet the brains behind this duo.
I'm definitely the brains in this partnership. I'm definitely the brains of the couple.
So Callum tells us that he made the plant selection.
Yes.
And then he needed a little bit of assistance with the combinations of the plants here. And you are behind all of this.
Yeah, if I'm honest, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I'm not qualified for it. I don't know what I'm doing, but somehow I just managed to put them together, and thank God he got a gold for it.
Well, I think that's a really cool point, because actually sometimes you have the whole group of plants in front of you, but you just need to find a way to get those levels in and get it right. So if we're looking at some of these plant combinations, we've got those lovely yellows, the lovely whites.
Yeah.
How did you go about putting it together? What feelings did you go with?
So the way I put them together is I always like a white. I always think we need a white somewhere. It just makes every other colour pop and bounce off it. So we've always got to get a white in there. And obviously with your colour charts, you've gone yellow and purple, because you know they're going to work well together.
So you use the colour chart to blend it?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's key sometimes, because you need to know what's going to work well together. And what I tend to do is just sort of place them, and if it makes me feel happy looking at it, then I'm like, yes, that's it. And I will put them down, I will put groups of like 6 or 8 plants together, I'll put them down and I'll walk off and I'll look at them from one angle, and then I'll check another angle, check a different angle, and then I'll come back and probably move them all. And then just do that over and over again until it looks right. But yeah, I think your colour chart is key.
And I think that's really inspirational, because there will be people out there who will go to a garden centre, pick up any old plants, bring them back, and then you get stuck because you don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
So to hear
I've definitely done that before myself.
You see, so all of that was leading you to this point. So clearly, you need to go and buy some more plants, is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
I think you've done an amazing job, and I think it's really, really actually inspirational, because there will be people out there who would look at these show gardens and think that they could never do it.
Yeah.
But to hear you be so refreshingly honest, I think it will give people some hope that they could go out and do something similar. So
I think that's kind of what we wanted to put across to everyone as well. Like, we want people to look at the garden and think, I could take that little bit and do that in my house. And if people can do that, then, you know, we're happy with that. So.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Go and enjoy your Prosecco.
I will. Thank you. Champagne today.
Oh, woo.
Thank you so much.
No worries, thank you.
A real congratulations to Callum, who also won the People's Choice Award in the Young Designer category. At first glance, the garden looks stunning, but in actual fact, Callum put 2 years of work learning and studying with the support of the Landscape Academy, who also helped me on my own garden. I wish Callum all the best in his career, and I cannot wait to see what he comes up with next. This garden won the People's Choice Award in the Show Garden category, and at first glance it might not be to everybody's taste. However, the colour scheme, the layout, everything is designed to represent and celebrate the Scottish rugby international player Dodie Weir. The colours and shapes of Dodie's own private tartan are echoed throughout the whole garden. If you look carefully, the number 5 is dotted all around the garden, and that's because the number 5 is his shirt number. He was diagnosed with motor neuron disease, and this garden has complete access for wheelchairs. The garden is designed for not just the patients, but also for the families to be able to use the space, sit, relax, and escape the world of motor neuron disease.
Now, normally when I go onto a big show garden and I speak to one of the designers, one of the last questions I ask is, can we do this in a container form? But on this garden, I don't have to actually ask that question, because right here we can see. So the in-ground border is really cohesive. You can see the different levels that we've got here on the garden. So we've got the grasses right through up until the taller achilles over here, and then we've also got the trees as well. So you can see just how this border has been constructed, but the designer has used these similar principles in the containers too. So we've got some shrubs here, we've got the eryngium here, and just look, it is absolutely covered in bees. What a stunning colour. But the container itself isn't flat, so again we've got the achillea here, and then we've got the height as well here. And so rather than just having one boring level, we've got so many different points of interest. And of course, if you have a look between the two containers, we've got the yellow container matching planting, blue, and then the base of this, we've got the cobalt blue, and here as well. So everything really ties together, and so by using that trifecta of colour, we've even got a trifecta of heights as well in the containers. So not all of the containers are at the same heights. We've got shorter here, gone for the blue, another short yellow, but then those colours are mixed in between. So it gives a really good idea on how you can create a border just in a container. It looks just as good as this container here. For those of you who have been following my flower show season, you may recognise the designer. In fact, she's just over there. It's good old Pip. Now, unfortunately, it is the end of a very long day and Pip is a little bit tired. So I'm going to leave her to rest, but I think that she's created an absolutely brilliant garden. Anyway, let's go and see the next one.
I'm Christine and I run a social enterprise called Lotus Brook.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us in the garden. It is so beautiful. It absolutely stopped me in my tracks. Can you tell us a little bit more about the client brief?
So it's for a young environmentally aware couple who want some sustainability in the garden through the planting and through the kind of infrastructure. So yeah, it's about keeping it manageable as well. You know, this is potentially self-build or you can get somebody to build it.
So in terms of sizes, this is not a large size at all actually for a show garden. These are really manageable, real size gardens. What size is this?
Okay, this is 5.7 metres by 3.8.
And that's the size of a normal terrace garden.
Yeah, so it's a manageable space, yeah.
And then what I've noticed is that you've got a lot of edible.
So it's about having beautiful borders while you can still eat off them. So we're not saying, you know, use your space to grow tomatoes and onions and stuff and, you know, just swathes of potatoes. But it's about, you know, you could buy those things. They're quite inexpensive, I'd like to think, still in the cost of living, which is a disaster. But you've got some beautiful greenery that you can enjoy in this space, and you can harvest little and often, which is why it's called glean. So it's taking little bits, little and often, and adding it to your dishes and adding colour and fun and flavour into your food.
And I guess there's like a real sense of enjoying because you know where everything's come from because you've grown it yourself. And I think people sometimes shy away from incorporating some edibles and stuff into the garden because it seems complicated, but you've made it look so simple.
Yeah, it just means you can, like you say, if you wanted a bit of fennel for your salad, we've harvested a little bit for a few salads this week. You can't tell that it's been harvested. And then you've got flowers that would normally, you know, die off. You pick them just before they do and you eat them, add them to your salad, and then you can, you know, you harvest your blueberries and add them in a nice pudding. So just little and often, so that you can keep on top of it and you're kind of maintaining it as well then at the same time.
And what I also love is that it's not all in ground. You've dotted in quite a lot of containers, so we can do this in containers.
Absolutely. So the reason some of these, like the horseradish and the wasabi, are in containers is because they, you know, one, horseradish will take over the world if you let it. It'll grow through everything. So it's more manageable. Wasabi prefers shade, so you can move that to a shady area so it doesn't, you know, die off in a permanent place. And then, yeah, you've got these pots that are movable, so you can put them on the table, and then while you're using the table, put them on the shelf. We've got micro dwarf tomatoes, so they're really tiny varieties, so they can go in small pots. So yeah, it's very flexible.
Amazing. And do you think that in terms of the urban setting with housing associations, do you think we could see more of this kind of gardening widespread across the city?
Yeah, I think you could do a lot of peer learning with neighbours and communities, and you could, you know, share resources, and you could easily, you know, start something up very inexpensively with a bit of support from maybe a gardener who's got some skills. That could be one of the residents, it could be a professional. And you know, before you know it, you'll have seed to share, you'll have plants to share, and that's the beauty of communities and gardening, right?
I agree 100%. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day, and congratulations on
On the surface, this garden is so pretty, but actually, when we dive into the undergrowth, you'll see it is full of orchids. The research and story behind this garden stretches continents, and I just had to find out more.
I'm Tom Saunders, and I'm the garden designer for Skylark Garden Design.
Now, last time we met you on this channel, we were having a conversation on your garden last year,
Yeah.
right here on the terrace garden, and I asked you, were you going to do another one of these again?
And what did I say?
Something like no, and yet here we are.
Surrounded by dry stone walls.
Back again.
Yeah.
And from what I saw on your social media pages, you went on some excursions to create this garden. So,
Yeah.
Tom, what is the client brief for this garden?
Okay, so first of all, there's two aspects to this. There's an exotic nature to it with some orchids, which we'll come back to. But then also there's a real sort of centering part to it, which is about where I'm from. The dry stone walls about where I'm living are just sort of, there's something that stuck with me. I'm not sure if this is a bit cheesy, but I'm going to say it anyway. Where the dry stone walls sort of move around, and it just sort of makes me feel so home. And it's like where the blood runs through my veins, the dry stone walls have that same sort of thing around the landscape. I feel like they're the veins of the countryside, and I've just found it so familiar. And I thought, how can I include this in the garden design? And then, so that was the first aspect. So I was looking for what's that landscaping material going to be, and I just went back to basics, back where I'm from, where I feel familiar. And I spoke to the landscape team and said, yeah, that's possible. And then the terrace garden thing came in, and actually Macclesfield, Bollington, areas of Yorkshire, Lancashire and Cumbria where I grew up, the terraces are dry stone walls, and it all suddenly started to fit in this category as well. And then I was thinking, okay, so I've done some work on these excursions in South America and Colombia, and the Colombian national flower is the orchid. And then I'm like, well, do we have orchids in Britain? Is that a thing? And it's a huge thing. And dactylorizas, and which are the common spotted orchid and marsh orchids. And there's a whole plethora of orchids that grow naturally in our environment. And I thought, there's the link. There's a link with Colombia, there's the link with Britain. The orchids grow in both countries. And then I sort of spend some time in the countryside walking my dog, and there I suddenly see orchids growing in the setting of dry stone walls, and I'm like, hang on, this is it. We're gonna make a dry stone orchid garden, and here it is. There we go. It's a long-winded answer, but it relates. They end up making sense.
But it's all come together, and it's come together so nicely. And these terrace gardens are not huge. This is a manageable, reasonable size that you actually do see in the northwest, like you said. And so, can you tell us a little bit more about the orchids and how, how are they in our gardens in the UK?
It's like opening up Pandora's box. They're outside of Europe and the Northern Hemisphere. They are right up there with the #1 flowering genus. So, across tropical areas where there's more biodiversity anyway, there are thousands of different types of orchids growing out there. And then to find that we have a real sort of society of enthusiasts around orchids in Britain, with the British Orchid Society, the Hardy British Orchid Society, I was able to surround myself around people who could teach me about them. And they grow in all sorts of different areas, in pastures, grass side verges on roads, marshy areas, woodland areas. And it was just like mind-blowing to find out that that orchid is something that we buy from Marks and Spencer's on Mother's Day, and it looks tropical, and we put it in our kitchen
for about 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
and then to find that they're growing terrestrially in the ground here in our own country was amazing. And there's something sort of majestic about them. They sort of, for me, there's a place called Lamelode, which is a reservoir that you can walk around in the Peak District. And I'm just sort of marching along there, minding my own business. And then there's just these little pinky purple, frothy heads just sort of just nodding in the grasses. And you just go, wow, those things are beautiful. So I've gone from a novice to an enthusiast. I'm not going to call myself an expert just yet, but certainly love them to bits, yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit more about the connection between orchids here and your work with orchids in Colombia?
Yeah, okay, so there's a charity over there called Protect the Andes, and we're using the orchid as a sort of symbol to help people realize that there's a biodiversity crisis globally. And over there is cloud forest in the Andes, which is different to rainforest. It's a cooler climate, just as humid, but cooler because of the altitude. And they're suffering from the same problems with over farming, using cattle, so they're chopping the trees down so the cattle have more grazing area. And for avocado farming and mango farming, for example, and other crops. It's a really silly, typical situation where, oh, it's really wet there, let's grow avocados, they need lots of water, but then they're chopping down the trees that create that climate.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy situation, but it's happening. And it's the reason why it's important there, because people ask me, you know, why aren't you doing a local conservation project? You know, and I'm talking about the British orchids as well. But there's a frontline battle going on out there, and it is around the equator, and it is around these lungs of the earth. It's a cliche, but it's true. And if we lose those places, there's no other fights to be having. You know, we're in trouble. So it's amazing to know that there's a group of scientists and enthusiasts in Colombia in there who are just asking for help right on the front line. And I was able to be there and work with these people, recording all the biodiversity that they have in order to inform the authorities there that no, this land can't be sold for agriculture because this orchid grows there, or this orchid grows there, or this species of animals. Even we were chased by bears, Jason. There were puma kills around us. It was an incredible experience. I'll do anything for a garden at Tatton Flower Show.
All of that, and you didn't get a gold, you got a silver gilt.
Yeah.
You should have been telling the judges this. Look, I risked my life for this garden.
Like I should have. Yeah, like wearing like a bear skin or something. Like I've sort of like I survived the Andes. Yeah, I should have done something bonkers like that. But it felt bonkers at the time. That was for sure. Like it's one of those moments in life where you go, right, okay, this is for the Tatton Flower Show, and we just need to get out of this situation. The bear needs to go away.
Yeah, I've got a garden to be made. I guess the point is, what you've done here is almost raising awareness to the struggles that's going on over there, and actually the two are linked in a way.
Exactly. So the British orchids are endangered, the Colombian orchids are endangered. Why? Because we're chopping down their natural environments, or making it very difficult for the natural environment to bounce back from the damage from human interaction. And I just think we can't mess about anymore. Okay, we can build a garden at Tatton and have wildflowers in it, but there's got to be a narrative and a message that this is the only fight worth fighting now, is making sure the biodiversity in the natural spaces, whether it's in Colombia, France, Britain, wherever, we've got to be making those voices heard and doing something active.
I think you've done a really great job of doing that, and thank you for sharing your passion. It's come through really, really strong.
Yeah.
So
like a bear.
Like a bear.
Please get that in.
Always a pleasure, Tom, sitting down with you. And congratulations.
Oh,
again.
thank you, Jason. It's good to see you, man.
Oh, awesome. This is going to be a one to edit.
Yeah, cool. Good luck.
Why
Do I get that stupid word comment in or not?
Honestly, Tom and I, when we are together, have an absolute ball. But I just get so swept up in his passion. And I've got to say a massive thank you to his missus, who allows him to go on these excursions. Although, to be honest, I think she probably just needs a break from Tom too. This garden isn't about face value beauty. It's got such a strong, deep message behind it. And I hope that you've learned something. If you'd like to find out any more about Tom's work, I've left a link below in the description box. Be sure to check it out.
My name is Rachel Benyon. I am the service lead at Petrus and have led the design for the Ginnel Garden.
Thank you. Now, I know a thing or two about Ginnel Gardens. I was lucky enough to do the garden last year, and you've taken on the baton and you've created something that is spectacular. The garden's called Kaleidoscope. Can you tell us a little bit more about the client brief?
Yes, so the aim of it was to celebrate the diversity of friendships that are formed through community gardening. So that's why we chose to, have such a diverse range of colours and, vibrancy within the garden, which is what we see in our communities.
What makes it so special is there is lots of colour dotted around, but it also feels really cohesive as well.
Yeah, and part of that client brief, it was, that actually if we work together, and you work with your neighbours and you work with other members of the community, you can bring that cohesion together, across a space and co-design those spaces together.
And can you tell us a little bit more about Petrus?
Yes, so Petrus is a homelessness charity that started in Rochdale just over 50 years ago. We provide frontline day service support to people who are experiencing homelessness and are at risk of homelessness. We also have residential support, and then another strand of that is our wellbeing support services, which include the community garden pier, which is how our journey to Tatton started.
Amazing, and I believe that some of your volunteers from Petrus actually helped create the garden.
They did, yes.
I'm Nathan, volunteer for Petrus. I've done planting for the grasses.
Yep.
And the plants to go in.
Amazing. And did you put all the plants in together?
I've had help.
Oh, amazing. It's come out really, really nice. Do you have a favourite part of the garden?
To be honest, it's just, I like it all. It just brings a lot of colour to my eyes, and it's just really good.
What does gardening mean to you?
My mental health. It means a lot to my mental health, because I don't want to be sitting in the doors and looking at four walls every day. I'd rather be outside doing gardening.
Yeah. And I believe that you have a YouTube channel, do you know?
I have a YouTube channel.
And what's the YouTube channel name?
My username is at nstatham3201.
There we go.
Please subscribe to me.
There you go. Thank you so much for your time.
Cheers, cheers.
Thank you so much for taking your time to film with me today, and let's get you out of the rain.
Thank you. Thanks, Jason.
No, Summer, it's just a pleasure to you just to be here. No. I absolutely love you being here.
I hope you've enjoyed listening to some of the stories behind these gardens. It just goes to show that they are more than face value. I hope this series has helped you. Let me know if it has in the comments below. Well, that is the final flower show of the season for me. I hope you've enjoyed this series. It has been an absolute blast, and through this series I've kind of overcome some of my confidence barriers with filming outside, so thank you so much. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and hopefully I will see you all again very, very soon. Bye!